dressed, and then he issued a proclamation that whomsoever should be able to tell from what animal the skin came should have his daughter in marriage. The proclamation was published far and wide, and people trooped in from the far corners of the earth to try their fortune. One said it was the skin of a wild cat, another that of a crocodile, and all guessed different animals, but all were 100 miles from the truth, and no one hit the mark. At last, there came to this anatomy world an ogre, who was the most horrible creature that had ever been seen. He was so hideous that just to look at him made one tremble and would give one dysentery, and freeze the heart of the boldest youth in the world. And this ogre, directly with your eye, went up to the skin and smelt it, and declared, "This is the skin of the champion of fleas." The king, who saw he had hit the nail on the head, felt he must keep his word, and sent for his daughter, Priscilla, a beautiful girl with a complexion of milk and blood. She was like a dragonfly to look at. You could have devoured her with your eyes. She was so lovely. "Oh, my daughter," said the king, "you know the proclamation I made, and you know the kind of man I am. I cannot go back on my word. One is either a king or a block of wood. My word is given, I must keep it, even though it break my heart. Who could have imagined to an ogre? But since not a leaf falls, but heaven decrees it, we must believe that this marriage was made first above and afterwards here below. Be patient, then, to your beloved and dutiful daughter. Don't oppose your father, for my heart tells me he will be happy. How often has treasure not been found in a rough stone jar?" When Porcella heard this bitter resolve, her eyes grew dim and her hands trembled. Almost did she let fly the falcon of her soul after the quail of her greed. At last, bursting into tears in a voice of anguish, she said, "What wrong have I ever done to our house that I should suffer this cruel punishment? Have I ever failed in my duty to you, that I should be consigned to this hideous monster? Oh, wretched Porcella, I must give myself up as a weasel in the throat of a frog, as a miserable sheep the prey to a wolf. Is this the love you bear for your only daughter? Is this thus that you tear from your heart a part of your very being? Oh, father, cruel father, for sure you cannot be of human flesh. Your blood must be the blood of sea sharks, and wild cats must have suckled you. But why should I speak so ill of the beasts of land and sea? Every animal loves its young. You alone turn from your daughter and bear hatred towards her. It would have been better if my mother had strangled me. The breast of my nurse had been a poisoned bladder, my swaddling clothes a shroud, and that little whistle they put around my neck had been a stone sinker to drag me to the bottom of the sea, since I am destined to be tied to this monster, to be caressed by the hand of a vulture, embraced by the paws of a bear, and kissed by the tusks of a wild boar." She would have said more, but the king, with smoke mounting to his head, interrupted her. "Enough of your fury. For sugar costs dear, and your butler is made of poplar. Stop! You have drained to the dregs. Be quiet and hold your bite and spiteful tongue. What I have done is well done, and it is not for you to teach a father how to treat his children. I don't drive the mustard up my nose with that tongue of yours, for once I lay my hands on you, I won't leave a hair on your head, and the ground will be strewn with your teeth. Just fancy the breath of my arse wanting to lay down the law on her own father. Since when have you, with the milk still in your mouth, dared to dispute my will? Take your husband's hand at once and set off with him this very moment. I will not endure even another quarter of an hour to have your impudent face before mine eyes." Well, the unhappy Porcella, when she found herself in this extremity, with the face of one condemned to die, gave her hand to the ogre, and the ogre then dragged her off all alone into a forest, where the trees shielded the sward so that it might never be discovered by the sun. The streams complained as they flowed along this obscurity, and the wild beasts, without paying toll, they found sanctuary. In this place, dark as a blocked-up chimney and terrifying as the mouth of hell, was the ogre's home, all hung round with the bones of men he eaten. Let anyone now imagine the trembling fright and terror that the poor girl experienced. Not a drop of blood remained. But this was nothing compared to what followed, for the ogre went out to hunt and came back laden with quarters of men that he had killed, and said invited to a wild boar hunt, and I will bring you back a couple. We shall feast with our kin to consummate our marriage with added zest. Having said this, he departed into the forest, and she remained weeping for the window. There chanced to pass in front of the house a little old woman, who begged for some food. The wretched girl answered, "My good woman, by God who sees my heart, I am in the power of a fiend of hell, who brings me home nothing but pieces of slain people. Yet I am the king's daughter." And saying this, she began to cry, like a girl who sees her dinner carried away. At this, the old woman was moved to pity, and answered, "Think of your health, my pretty dear. Don't spoil your youth with crying, for luck has come your way, and I have the means to help you. Now listen, I had 5 sons, 5 jewels, 5 tall oaks, 5 giants. They have greater powers than Rosemary. Mase is only to put his ear to the ground if he can hear what's going on 30 miles away. Nardo makes a huge soapy sea every time he spits. Nico, with one stick, produces a thick wood. Ascadio, when he throws a stone, a strong tower rises up. And Cession, he aims so well with his crossbow, he can hit the chicken's eye from a mile away. With the help of these, who are all kind of courteous, I will try and keep you from the ogre's clutches, for a tasty morsel like you is not the tooth of an ugly monster. However, it cannot be tonight, but tomorrow morning we will come for you." Well, at dawn, as soon as the birds had cried out, "Long live the sun!" behold, the woman and her 5 sons arrived, and putting Porzella in their midst, they started out for the city. They had not gone half a mile when Mase, putting his ear to the ground, called out, "Listen, listen, here's the fox. The ogre has found the girl not at home, and he's coming with his cap under his arm to catch us up." When he heard this, Nardo spit on the ground and made a sea of soapy water, so that the ogre came up and saw it. He was forced to go home and fetch a sack of bran. This he trampled into the soapy water with his feet, and so, with great difficulty, he overcame the obstacle. Then Mase listened again and cried, "Up, up to arms! The ogre will be upon us, for he is coming as fast as if he were flying." But Nico, with his little stick, quickly raised up a terrible chorus, which was almost impenetrable. The ogre, however, seized the huge knife that he had at his side and began to fell the trees until the wood was raised to the ground, and he freed himself from his entanglement. Mase heard his footsteps and cried, "Our affair is going from bad to worse, and heaven help us, I can already hear the clatter of his heels. We must gather our wits and find shelter from this tempest, or we are lost." "Don't be afraid," said Ascago, "for I can deal with this malicious brute." And he threw down a stone, and there appeared a tower into which they quickly fled, bearing the door behind them. The ogre, seeing that they were in a place of safety, ran back home and took a great vicar's ladder, shouldered it, and ran back to the tower. Mase, who had kept his ear to the ground, heard him coming from afar and said, "Now the candle of our hope is nearly burned down. Cession is our last resource. For the ogre is coming back in a great fury, and woe is me how my heart beats, for I already see our ruin." "What a coward," answered the youngest brother. "Leave him to me and see if I don't get him with my guns." Whilst he was speaking, behold, the ogre planted his ladder and began to climb up. But Cession, taking aim at him, shot out one of his lights, and he dropped to the ground like a fallen pear. Then he came down from the tower, and with the ogre's own knife, he cut his throat as if it had been a piece of cheese. Then they joyfully carried back his head to the king, who rejoiced at recovering the